In this video, I'll be going through a brief overview of how to find the perimeter of some basic shapes. So let's get started, okay? So before I do that, I'm just going to go through some quick questions with you. So hopefully these questions are all quite straightforward, okay? So the first question says, use a ruler to measure each interval to the nearest millimeter. Write your measurements in the spaces provided. Now, I don't have a ruler, so I'm not going to do question 3, but you should be able to do it yourself using the ruler that you have, okay? So I'm just going to go through question 4. Question 4 says, which unit, kilometer, meter, or millimeters would you use to measure each of the following? Write the unit abbreviations, okay? So when it says unit abbreviations, they're referring to the km, the m, or the mm, okay? So as you can see, the length of the classroom. Now, it would be a bit strange to measure the length of the classroom in kilometers because no classroom is really that big. Or millimeters. If we use millimeters, then it's just going to be a very, very big number. So I'm going to go through some examples and I will let you do the rest, okay? Say for B. Distance from Sydney to Melbourne. Okay, so that should be what? That should be km, right? Because Sydney to Melbourne, it's very far. So I'm going to write km, okay? Let's pick another one. The length of your shoe. Okay, so it doesn't make sense to use km or meters for the length of a shoe. No one's shoes are that big. It's most likely going to be millimeters, okay? So for 4h, millimeters. Now, I actually think it's better to use centimeters here, but the question doesn't specify centimeters, so I guess the next best thing is millimeters. Let's pick another one. The width of a doorway. Now, the width of a doorway, doors are quite big, so we can use meters for that, okay? Wouldn't make sense to use kilometers now, would it? Alright, so I'm not going to go through too many of these as these should be quite straightforward. I'm going to move on to the questions, okay? So, now we're learning about the perimeter of a plane shape. Now, a plane shape is basically a 2D shape. And if you read this, it says the perimeter of a plane shape is the total length of the outside boundary. To calculate the perimeter, add the length of all the sides. So in other words, in this example here, to find the perimeter of this shape, we just have to add the length of all the sides. So in this case, there's the 38, there's the 34, there's the 20, and the 25. So we add these 4 numbers up, we get 117. Now, you can use a calculator for that if you want to. Or for some extra challenge, you can try to do it without a calculator. And lastly, make sure you write the units, okay? So let's just go through the first question, okay? So 8.1, this is A. Question 1. So to find the perimeter of the triangle, we have to add up the length of all the sides. So what do we have? 12, 8, and 16. So then we can say perimeter, P for perimeter, is equal to 12 plus 8 plus 16. And try to do this in your head without a calculator. So 12 plus 8 is what? 20 plus 16 is 36. Right. And the most important part, make sure you write the unit. So this question is in centimeters. So make sure you write the centimeters, okay? Do not forget that. In the exam, if you forget this, it's going to be wrong. Alright, so I'm not going to go through any more of these. As you can see, all you have to do is add up the length of all the sides. So for question 8, you can just add 16, 12, 16, and the 12. You add them all up, you get your answer. Alright, so A, generally the A questions are quite easy. B gets a little bit harder, but I have faith that you can still do it. Oops, what is this? Shouldn't be there. Alright, B. Now let's have a look at question 1 for B, okay? So, now in this question, we know that this length is 8 and this length is 15, but we don't know the length of these two. But we notice that there's 2 lines on the bottom edge and there's 2 lines on the top edge. So what that means is if the bottom edge has 2 lines and the top edge has 2 you can see the two vertical lines. That means they're both the same length. So in other words, the top edge is also going to be 15 centimeters. Okay. Likewise, this edge is going to be 8 centimeters. So what that means is this is 15 and this is 8. So to find the perimeter, we add up all the sides. So we can do 8 plus 15 plus 8 plus the 15. Okay. So perimeter is equal to 8 plus 15 plus 8 plus 15. Okay. So once we do all that, then what we should end up with is, now you can do this in your head or use a calculator. So this is 46 centimeters. Okay. So just remember, the sides with the same number of vertical lines are equal in length. Okay. Okay. Now, let's do a different example. So let's take a look at question 7. Okay. So I'm just going to cut this, drag it here. Bam. There we go. Okay. So when it comes to doing a question like this, now to find the perimeter, we need to find the length of all the sides. So we know that one of the sides is 17. And we know that this side also has a line on top. So that means this side will also be 17. And so is this side, right? Because they all have that line, right? So all sides with one line are 17 centimeters. So to work out the perimeter, we just simply have to add all three sides. So P is equal to 17 plus 17 plus 17, right? So if you use your calculator, you should get a number of 51, right? Make sure to write the unit at the end. Right, so that's question 7. Now, hopefully, you should be able to do the other questions, but before I go on to the next part, I'll just quickly go through question 10. So as you can see, question 10, there's two sides that are known and one side that's unknown, right? Now, this side should equal to 13 because this side has 2 lines and this side has 2 lines. So therefore, this is 13 and it's not 11, okay? So that means to find the perimeter of this, it's 13 plus 11, okay? All right, now let's move on to the next exercise. The next exercise basically now is asking you to calculate the perimeter of each of these plane shapes. Now, the challenging part of these questions is they do not draw it out for you. So you need to draw the diagrams yourself, okay? So I'm going to go through some examples, and then hopefully by going through these examples, you understand how to do the rest. So question 13, it's a rectangle. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. Okay. So that's So this is my rectangle here. It's not a perfect rectangle, but it's good enough, okay? So it's 26 centimeters long and 19 centimeters wide, okay? So we know that it's a 26 by 19 rectangle. Okay. Now, how do we find the perimeter? So if you remember the properties of a rectangle, we know that the opposite sides of a rectangle are the same, right? So we can say that this side is also 26 centimeters. And these two sides are opposite. So you notice how I drew the one line on both of these sides to indicate that they're the same. So now we have all 4 sides of the rectangle. We can work out the perimeter. Now remember previously I said to add up all the sides and that will give the perimeter. But with a rectangle, there's actually a quick way that you can do this. All you need to do is you need to just add 2 of the sides and multiply it by 2. Okay, so that's the same as 2 multiplied by 19 plus 26. Okay. And what this should give you is, you can type this onto your calculator. This is 45 times 2, which is 90. Now, the unit should be centimeters. Okay. So this is another way to work out the perimeter, because we know that there's two 26s and two 19s, so we can just add up these two sides and times it by 2. Alternatively, you can add up the length of all the sides, okay? Alright, let's go through some more examples. Let's have a look at question 22, okay? Now 22 is actually a square, so let's just draw a square, first of all. So we can do this. And it says the side length is 94 millimeters, okay? So we know that the side length is 94. Now, what we also know that about a square is that all sides of a square are equal in length. In other words, you can draw a line on each of the sides, okay? So to work out the perimeter of a square, we can just do 94 plus 94 plus 94 plus 94. Alternatively, we can just do 94 multiplied by 4, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to go through another example. So let's have a go at question 28, okay? So 28. So 28 says equilateral triangle with sides measuring, I think this is a 2.3 meters, okay? So equilateral triangle. So that means all sides are the same length, okay? And we're going to label them as 2.3, okay? So 2.3. This is also 2.3. And this is also 2.3. Now to find the perimeter of this shape, all we need to do is add up the length of all the sides, or you can just do P is equal to 2.3 times by 3, right? So this way you will get what? 6.9 centimeters. Okay. Alright, so hopefully by going through some of these examples, it gives you a brief understanding of how to do the questions from 13 to 28. Now I just want you to do the questions by yourself, and feel free to post any comments on Google Classroom if you have any questions. Thank you.